Hey guys, it's AV, Faith and Fame with AV, live from your local Houston BMW Studios. You know, a part of my career, I love interviewing wonderful people who are all about purpose and destiny, people who have come not only through difficult moments in life, but the defining moment was not a moment where they gave up, but it was a moment where they were able to readjust and coming what I like to call Christian royalty. Coming from a family of Christian royalty, I'm excited to have my next guest, Sarah Jakes Roberts, who's here with her, not first book, but her fifth book entitled Women Evolve. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It is a wonderful time. I'm excited about this fifth book that you have released, and especially in this time and in this climate, I know we are in just a difficult moment, not something that's new to all of us, but it seems like these kind of moments with the George Floyd situation, with unemployment, with us going through the pandemic, it seems like these situations keep kind of revolving themselves. How have you been able to just maintain and navigate through this season?
It's so difficult to not let what's happening around you affect what you feel is possible for you. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to write this book, is because we've had so many exposures and experiences that happen around us. And if we aren't careful, they begin to shape us. And so I wanted to write this book because my own journey of getting unstuck and really taking control and inventory of my life has yielded results that I didn't think was possible. And so this book for me and this opportunity to share with women is so that when we're in moments like this, we don't feel without hope. And so that's one of the reasons why I think that this book is going to help a lot of people through this time in particular.
We can't talk about hope without talking about your parents, of course, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and of course, your mother, who I just love. When you talk about a woman of destiny and a woman who brings hope to a nation, Sarita Jakes is just that. And talk about just your parents real quick, because I know that's a process of helping you to evolve into the woman who you are today.
Absolutely. Not everyone is blessed or fortunate enough to have parents who are supportive at every stage of your journey. And I feel so blessed. I thank God literally every day that whether it was me pregnant as a teenager or me launching the ministry of Woman Evolve, that I never had to wonder whether or not my parents were for me. As incredible as they have been in changing the lives of people who are connected to their ministry, I think one of the things that makes me most proud as just a person in the world is that they supported and changed the lives of the people who lives in their homes. So, I love them so, so much, and
Yeah.
obviously wouldn't be who I am without them.
You talked about, having experienced teen pregnancy. You talked about a moment in your life, I know in the book, especially where you reached this point of where you wanted to throw in the towel. And I like to call it that kind of defining moment where we've all been. I felt myself just a couple of years ago being in that same moment where it felt like, okay, I've been in church since I was 13 years old. And I felt like I've reached a certain height, and it felt like the world is crashing down on me. And I'm like, okay, either I can kind of soak in this moment, or I can either kind of evolve in this moment. And take us into that, because I know, especially being a daughter of prominent leaders, you find yourself, as a pregnant teenager, that can be a devastating moment for you. Not that we understand that God gives, children come from God, but just the pressure you're under being a PK kid at that time. Talk about that moment and how you were able to evolve in that season.
It was a lot of pressure. I mean, I got pregnant at 13. I had my son at 14. And it took me, I'm going to say, almost 10 years to come to a defining moment. I think a lot of times when we think in terms of defining moments, we think like there's this one instances, but I believe it's a culmination of experiences that begin to make us force ourselves into a decision. And it was the defining moment for me, 10 years after that pregnancy, where I had to decide, am I going to try and fix my reputation, or am I going to try to become someone? I was working on creating an image after my teen pregnancy, an image of a girl who wasn't the one who got pregnant. And yet that's who I was. I was a girl who got pregnant. And so I challenged myself from that point forward to stop trying to be me and instead figure out, how do I embrace myself with all of my shortcomings and disappointments and flaws and scars, and still find beauty in them. And that's where I really began to see my life change and evolve.
Well, and that's a great point, because a lot of people do. We try to adjust into this image of what, we think other people perceive of us, instead of being genuine to who we truly are. Talk about, how do you you transform your mindset to get to that moment? Because this is like a new stage of life, you know, that brings new anxiety and worries when you're trying to become something you're not, instead of just being your genuine self.
That's so good. That's part of the reason why I didn't want to just write a book telling people what to do. I wanted to really give them tools on how to do it. A lot of times we don't even know where we are. We're showing up
Right.
in our lives, we're functioning the way that we should be functioning. But where's my soul? Where's my joy? What makes me happy? What gives me purpose? What gives me a sense of fulfillment? We have no clue. What broke me? What hurt me? How did I become this person? We have no clue. And so I wanted to give people permission in writing Woman Evolve to ask themselves questions, to do the work so that they could have a mirror of who they are now. And then let's create a vision. Without a vision, the people perish, right? So
Right.
let's create a vision. How do we tap into God to figure out what his vision is for our life? And so Woman Evolve really meets you right where you are and then helps you to see where it is you can go if you're willing to do the work with God.
And I know that's something that we definitely can't skip over, the work part, because how do you get out of the rut, the anxiety, because, you know, that self conversation that you have, because sometimes the enemy comes, and we know the devil, thoughts, ideas, and suggestions, comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and tries to put a mindset on you of giving up, that people are not going to want to hear from you anymore. They're not going to want to hear what you have to say to this society. You've messed up, you've ruined. How do you get past that, those emotions and that anxiety, to step into this and to do the work that's ahead?
You know, that I could spend all day answering that question. There are so many things. I think we first have to acknowledge the source of it, right?
Mhm.
So our thoughts have a source. I go into like detail about this in the book, but our thoughts have a source. Ultimately, we have to determine, are my fears producing this thought, or is
Right.
my faith producing this thought? And
Mhm.
when I know that my fears are producing this thought, then I have a better chance at defending myself against myself. I talk about in the book how Eve, her mind was used against her by the serpent. He asked her a question, and from there, she was deceived and changed her diet. So, what is deceiving our thoughts? And let's do the work to deconstruct that. I talk in the book over and over again about therapy, because at the end of the day, if you feel like these thoughts are overwhelming me, I don't know how to introduce new thoughts, I don't know how to break this pattern, certainly get this book as a tool, but don't be afraid to get additional help and resources. My friend Dr. Anita Phillips says
Yeah.
prayer is a weapon, but therapy is a strategy. And we
Yes.
have to be willing to use the strategy of therapy to get the breakthrough that we need spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah, you know, it has been had been taboo for years in the church when you talk about therapy, and just talk about the benefits of it, because like you said, it's a strategy for us. But sometimes we get so caught up into thinking therapy, it's like, okay, well, am I really having this mental breakdown? But you are having a mental battle, so therapy helps to navigate you to it. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh my goodness. Pastors get to meet different people. They get
Mhm.
insight into their lives. And so we get to understand like a pattern of what generally hurts people, what helps them to overcome. We get to study this as a part of our lives. And yet we are not licensed therapists. We
Right.
have not gone to school for this. As you know,
Yes.
most of us, I'm speaking in
Mhm.
general, certainly there are pastors who are licensed as well. But in general, we don't necessarily have the tools, the scientific tools or research to help you win this thing. We can pray for you, we can give you the wisdom that we have from the Lord, but there are moments where you need someone who is licensed to help draw out what's in you so that we can get good things back on the inside of you. And so your pastor can help you and be in your corner, but they may not always be able to be your therapist. And I think that that's part of the reason why we're seeing it become more universally talked about in our churches and in our pews, is because pastors realize, like, I'm not equipped to help everyone through everything, and I have to be okay with that. And I think when we see that happen from the head of a community, then it
Yeah.
gives people more comfort in the congregation to do what needs to be done.
Woman Evolve is a brand new book. Sarah Jakes Roberts joined me on Faith and Fame with AV. I'm loving the cover behind you. I
Thank
love,
you.
you know, it's always first class, and I'm excited about this because it gives us an opportunity to talk about soul care. And a lot of people, you know, I remember we went through that time where you hear people talking about team no sleep, as if that was just a badge of honor. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I like my sleep. Maybe
I
it's just
love to
AV. Yeah,
rest.
I think, but talk about self-care, you know, dealing with soul care versus self-care.
Self-care is important. It's taking care of your nails, it's getting your hair done, it's working out, it's getting massages. Like self-care is important, but soul care is just as important. I dare say, in some instances, depending on what you're going through, it's more important. It's saying, when is the last time I took inventory of my soul?
Yeah.
Especially in this pandemic, so much grief, so much trauma, watching the George Floyd's murder and the social
Mhm.
unrest, the political climate. Like, how am I'm in this world, but how is this world affecting me? And a lot of times we wait too late and we're just fed up and sick of everyone because we didn't take the time to check in with ourselves daily. And so I challenge people in the book to take 10 minutes a day. When you're starting your morning, it can be in the middle of the day, to say, how are you doing? And give yourself time to answer. Don't treat yourself like we do people in the grocery store, where we're like, how
Yeah.
are you? And keep pushing the grocery
Yeah.
cart.
Yeah. I
Like,
gotta keep
how are
shopping.
you for real? Yeah, I don't have time to answer that. But to answer that question for yourself and see how you're doing.
Yeah. And I love how you say, a person's purpose in life doesn't change, it evolves. And, because sometimes we think purpose is just reaching this one moment or reaching this particular height, but it seems to evolve. I like how Paul said in the Bible that I pour out. He says, I want to live life to where I'm empty, and I want to get everything out of me. And sometimes we think it's just one particular assignment, but purpose is about a day-to-day thing, and we evolve and grow daily. And talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So when I first started writing, I was just blogging, and I felt like my purpose is to be a blogger,
Well,
and
yeah,
I was ready to just do that forever. And then someone approached me about writing a book, and I was like, okay, my purpose is writing. Okay, it
yeah,
expanded a little bit. It's not just blogging; it's writing. And then I started speaking, and people's lives were being changed by me speaking. Okay, I'm like, well, maybe it's writing and speaking. What I noticed though is that there was this common thread of me being able to reach into the hearts of people and
mm,
bring them back to God. And I realized that is my purpose. Now, how
yeah.
that shows up, the method may change, but at the end of the day, the purpose does not. And so that purpose continues to evolve in my life as I end up showing up in different industries and fields to really exercise what God has given me as my purpose.
When you hear the verse, and I don't mean to throw a lot of scriptures at you,
Go
but
for it.
anytime I'm talking to to a Jakes, now Roberts, I just feel like you got to somewhere in here throw a scripture or two in the conversation. But when you hear the verse that your gift will make room for you among great men, when you hear that now at your age and at your success, what does that mean to you now compared to probably when you heard that growing up?
When I heard it growing up, envisioned it as like it being a puzzle piece, and there was this empty space where you were supposed to fit. And now that I am an adult, I see that it's really not that. I wish I had an analogy to explain it, but I see the room expanding the moment that you step into it. The table could be full. It's like when you're
Yeah,
sitting at Thanksgiving and your uncle come in late, like he always does, and it's like we don't
yeah,
have no room. And they're like, if you move the placemats over and you move your chair, there's room here. That's how I see purpose now. It's like it doesn't look like there's any space for you. It doesn't look like you could go into that field, go into that ministry, go into
mhm,
that industry. But just because you don't see space doesn't mean you don't belong there. When you become who you're supposed to become in God, when you become obedient, the space begins to stretch out the moment you step into the room. And that's been my own experience, even with Woman Evolve, the movement.
I love it. And of course, the U.S. economy lost over 140,000 jobs in this climate. And we know that African American women and
Yeah.
mainly Latinos were affected by this recent economy. And I know one of the things you said with Woman Involved is that you wanted to bring a message of hope to our women. And talk about that. We just went through Women's History Month, and talk about this message of hope that you can offer, especially when we already know there's a disparity when it comes to pay. And now when we see
Yeah.
with the unemployment numbers, it's just a whole nother mess. And I was raised by a single mom who
Yeah.
worked every day and gave her all. And she was, people always ask, what was my inspiration? That was my mother and her
Mhm.
hard work. So talk about just a message of hope to women today that would be a sense of encouragement to helping them evolve.
I heard this term for the first time, a she session. They said that that's what happened during the pandemic, a she session, that women, particularly to your point, brown and Black women, were affected as a result of what took place in the pandemic. And that is the core of who I get to serve through Woman Evolve. And one of my goals for women who are connected to the movement, or perhaps even people who are listening right now, is to bring us to a place of trust and faith in God, even though our circumstances may be challenging and difficult. Part of the reason why I do that and focusing on gratitude and what we have left, which is difficult. I don't want to underestimate the loss
Right.
or to diminish it in any way, because the loss is very great. And yet I do believe that creativity, the entrepreneurial spirit, the idea that let me go out and apply for this job to have hope that I can show up in the world again, has so much to do with our spirit. And so my goal, when the practical begins to fail us, is to go inwardly so that we can protect the hope that is necessary to fuel who we need to become on the outside. And then there are practical things that we're trying to do through Woman Evolve. We've resourced so many women during the pandemic financially to make sure that they were able to make ends meet, but we're also hoping to continue to offer courses and resources so that women are getting their resumes together. They're learning how to have side hustles, because at the end of the day, I don't want any woman left behind of the greatness that God has for each and every last one of us.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the wonderful things that came out of this pandemic, is that this entrepreneur spirit has risen in a lot of us. The things that we probably in-house at home just overlooked have become the things that God has used to kind of sustain us through this. Kind of like that widow woman with the oil, and the widow woman, with the little meal. It's like the thing that's in the house has sustained us and kept us. And I want to say thank you for being a part of the purpose that God has, not only in today's time, but for future generations to come who will be blessed by your ministry and your book. Of course, Woman Evolved, the book is out now. I want everybody to go and get it, and to get it and get it again, and share with the community and people in your neighborhoods. If people would like to keep up with you and follow you, how can they do that?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Sarah Jakes Roberts. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been amazing.
It's been amazing, and I thank you. Before you go, tell us a little bit about the church, because I want everybody to know I'm a big fan of the ministry. So, I'd be bragging on it forever, but you can definitely sit in the middle with me.
Well, Bishop T.D. Jakes is my bishop, but my pastor, the person who has really allowed me to blossom in how I hear from God and how I'm able to relate to others, Pastor Teray Roberts, founded the Potter's House at One Church Los Angeles. We're right in the heart of LA, but we also have a campus in Denver. And this is just a community of people who believe that our lives are not random. And each week, our teaching team, led by my husband, are able to empower people to continue to show up in life with hope and optimism, that we are here to bring heaven to hell, that we are here to bring heaven to earth, and that if we all take our position, that we'll see the world become a better place.
I love it. Woman Evolve. Go out and get the book. Sarah Jakes Roberts, this has been one of the highlights of my career. I thank you for taking the time out to be a blessing, not only to me, but to everybody who will view this interview today. And thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. It's been an honor.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.